honor this morning to be able to introduce our guest speaker today. Our guest speaker, Reverend Julie Interrante, she is the author of The Power of a Broken Open Heart. And it has been my privilege to have been her student for many, many years. And we have laughed together, we've cried together, we've gotten angry together, we've gotten angry at each other over the years. But I have learned so much from this incredible teacher. And I'm so happy that you are here. It is my honor to welcome. Let's give her a good CSA welcome, Reverend Julie Interrante.
Oh, good morning. You might want to hold that applause until you find out what we're talking about today. It is absolutely my privilege to be here, and thank you, Ramona. The truth is, Ramona and I have walked a lot of paths together, and we met in Placerville when I had the church up there. It's always really lovely to be at CSA. This is where I got my start. I was a minister here, the assistant minister at one time, long time ago, and I love this place, and it always feels like home, and so thank you for letting me be here. I want to take a minute this morning and just acknowledge Brian, and doesn't he just make you smile and feel good? Just that little face, I just love it. I also want to take a minute this morning and just acknowledge Reverend Georgia and all of those that are up at Human Spirit. I suspect they're a little chillier this morning than they expected. And I also know that it is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful event. And I just want all of us to send blessings and our love and our care to them as they will pack up and start heading home today. So thank you. So I'd like to start this morning with a quote that goes like this. As much as I try to be an easygoing, stretch your wings and fly type, I just can't stop trying to burst people into flames with my mind. Ever feel that way, do you? I'm telling you, menopause will bring it on just like that. Oh, yeah, I love anger. The truth is, I actually really do. Because here's the deal. It is part of the divine. It is part of the energy of God. It is what will bring me into my fullest expression. It is the thing that will show me where I am betraying myself. It is the thing that will show me where boundaries have been violated. It is the thing that if I slow down long enough to feel it and to be in the discomfort of it, I will find my way. I feel that. You know, for lots and lots of us, it's actually been really frightening to admit that we are angry. We live in a culture that tells us to deny our feelings, and most specifically to deny our anger. For women, we have been told that it is okay to be sad and depressed, but it is not okay to be angry. For many men, we have been told that it is okay to be angry and look powerful, but it is not okay to be sad. It is not okay to feel soft and tender and vulnerable. And yet the truth is, by pushing our anger down, we are not finding ourselves. We push our anger down, and guess what it's going to do? It's going to come out somewhere. See, because the life of the divine will not be stopped. It can't be pushed aside. It can't be held down. If I try it, watch what it does. It will either explode out this way or it's going to come out this way. It is absolutely important for me to feel my anger. Julia Cameron says this: anger is not to be acted out. It is to be acted upon. It is the roadmap to creativity, joy, and action. It is not to be acted out. it is to be acted upon. Here's what I have found out when I sit with my anger. I find out where I am pushing myself aside. I find out where I am betraying myself. I find out how scared I am of what you think of me. I find out where I am pushing what I know is right aside in favor of not rocking the boat. Anger is absolutely a roadmap and gives me information about me. I am finding that I find the unadulterated me when I sit with my anger. Sitting quietly with my anger is slowly removing the mask of deceit. It is slowly removing trying to be so perfect at all cost. It is allowing me to become a human being. See, I don't know about you, but I spent a good deal of my life trying to use my spirituality to bypass my humanness. And it has not served me. My anger is part of being a human being. It is what moves me into right action. Here's the deal, though. If I refuse to sit with and feel the discomfort of my anger, I am either trying to deny it or shove it under. I will never find myself. It will, in the long run, hurt me or hurt someone else. See, I believe one of the mistaken beliefs that we have in our culture is that our anger will either hurt or kill me, or it will hurt or kill someone I love. The only way that anger will hurt or kill someone else is if I stuff it. Do you hear this? I want you so badly to hear this because I want to do this with you. You know, if I don't pay attention to it, it will get acted out because it is unconscious. And God will not let me remain unconscious. See, I believe that God is not so concerned with my happiness. I believe that God is concerned with my authenticity and meaning, with what's real. And having worked in end-of-life care for all the years that I have, what I know is that when we come to the end of our lives, what is more important than anything else is being real. If I refuse to feel my anger, I cannot show up and be authentic with myself or with you. It is not serving us to push our anger aside. It is time to stop. I have a brilliant friend whose name is Sandra Lamison, and she is the executive director of Bread of Life here in Sacramento, and she says this: anger is the spiritual energy given for movement toward justice and right relationship. It signals that a perceived boundary has been crossed and provides the energy needed to reestablish a healthful border. I actually believe that one of the biggest diseases in our culture and in our spiritual communities is be nice. I agree. I'm glad somebody agrees. Be nice. And the problem with be nice is I will shove my anger aside. I will actually end up being nice at the expense of doing right. I will be nice at the expense of my brother and sister who's standing next to me, who needs me to stand up in right action. Anger is what fuels that. But the only way for me to use my anger for good in the world is if I will agree to sit with it and be with it rather than allow myself to act it out. What does acting out my anger look like? Every time I've got my finger pointed that way, I'm acting out my anger. Every time I blame out, I'm acting out my anger. What are the ways in the world that we see acting out anger? War, prejudice. What else? There's all kinds of them. Domestic violence, pornography, selling children. And then the ways that we act out anger, all those things that I think of as the little ways that I do it in my own life. But you know what? Every time I act out that anger, I am not taking responsibility. When I act out my anger, it means that I am not sitting quietly with what makes me uncomfortable. I had a really personal experience of this just a few weeks ago. I have three sisters, but I have one in particular that has made a choice not to speak with me. And we had a conversation a few weeks on the phone in which she told me that she was not willing right now to have a relationship with me. And it was very painful. And there was a point in that conversation where what I did was got so uncomfortable that I wanted to change her. I wanted to change her mind. And there were about 4 sentences in there where we could have really gotten into it. Where I could feel the energy starting to escalate. I could feel that anger starting up. And by the grace of God, I actually in my head heard, "Don't go there." And what came out of my mouth was, "I'm really sad about this. And I know that you are doing the best you can. And I am doing the best I can. And I don't have an answer today." And when we hung up, I was in tears, she was in tears, and I have not heard from her again. I just share that with you to say, that's what it takes to not act out my anger. I have to stay conscious. I have to stay in my body. I have to feel what's going on. I'd like to just share with you a couple of readings from Scripture that I think exemplify this idea of anger. This is from Mark 3. It says, "Again he," speaking of Jesus, "entered the synagogue, and a man was there who had a withered hand. And they watched him to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, 'Come here.' And he said to them, 'Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save life or to kill?' But they were silent. He looked around at them with anger, grieved at their hardness of heart, and said to the man, 'Stretch out your hand.' He stretched it out, and his hand was restored." He looked around at them with anger. Jesus got angry too. The mystics get angry too, not because it's the only way to make things change, but it is one of the ways. Our anger is implanted, it's encoded in us if we will listen to it. Another time, they were bringing children to Jesus that he might touch them, and the disciples rebuked the children. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant and said to them, "Let the children come to me, do not hinder them. For to such belongs the kingdom of God. Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child shall not enter it." And he took them in his arms and blessed them laying hands on them. Jesus used his anger to make a point. Jesus used his anger, that life energy, to fuel him in order to do what was his to do. The same is true for us. So, what are some examples of using our anger to work for justice in the world? I think one of the most amazing ones right now, a very contemporary being who is using her anger to fuel her for good in the world, is Marianne Williamson, who is running for Congress. Yeah. This is a woman who is so spiritually grounded and who has dedicated her life to her spirituality and truth and goodness on the planet, that she has somehow found the courage to join into politics. And I don't know about you, but I think that takes incredible strength and courage. It scares me to think about it. If you want to check her out, go to MarianneWilliamsonforcongress.com. What are other examples? I think that Reverend Georgia Prescott in Authentic Voices is an example of acting on your anger. It is anger at injustice and prejudice and hurting people in the name of rules and right. It is what fuels us. All of us know Dr. Martin Luther King. There are many, many, many of them out there. Many of us in here that are acting on our anger instead of acting it out. We are not bad or misguided because we have anger. Anger is built in so that we will be powerful, effective, sensitive human beings. There's a wonderful quote by an Episcopal priest by the name of Cynthia Bourgeau. She says this: "By embracing the thing you once defended yourself against or ran from, you are actually disarming it, removing its power to hurt you or chase you back into your smaller self." I love that she uses smaller self, because so many of us have been taught that if you're angry, you're in your smaller self. I'm here to tell you that's not true. That anger is there to help find that more expanded self, that place that loves deeply, that can live from tenderness and vulnerability. We have been telling ourselves that if we're angry, we are not vulnerable. Not true. If I stay present and sit with my anger and listen to it and let it guide me, I will find that deep, tender, vulnerable place in me. So often it is my anger that if I sit with it or I write about it, it is what leads me into my broken heart. It is what leads me into the tender, vulnerable softness that is laying underneath that place of defensiveness. Anger is a powerful, powerful tool in our lives. The millennium for believing anger is bad and should be pushed aside or pushed away is over. It is not serving us to pretend that we do not have the powerful emotion of anger. You have a right to have it. It is part of you. We can use it for good in our world. I can tell you that in my own experience, what is happening for me as I agree to sit and be with and explore my anger is I am softening. It is not what I expected. I expected if I walked into my anger that I would become a hard, angry bitch. and that everyone in the world would know that's who I was. It's not true. By exploring it and being with it, using it for what its intended purpose is, I am softening. I am less angry. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes when I'm driving down the street and they aren't driving fast enough or moving aside as I need them to, that I don't want to flip them half a peace sign, as Reverend Georgia would say. It happens to me a lot. But here's what I've learned, is when I notice that I am acting out my anger, I mean, that's one of the ways that I act out my anger. But what I'm learning is when I see myself act it out somewhere, that's when I need to go home and put myself in my quiet room, in my closet, in wherever, and sit with my anger and find out what is getting disturbed in there, instead of continuing to allow myself to act it out, even if all I'm doing is screaming at the top of my lungs in my own car. Because that's not what my anger is intended for. As I deal and live and be present with my anger, I am becoming more of a human being. And I'm becoming more of a human being who cares more about you. As I use my anger to find the places where I am betraying myself, or where my boundaries have been violated in one way or another, the more that I spend time and heal that up, the more often I hear myself saying what I really think and believe. The more often I stand next to someone else who needs support. The more often I find that I am less concerned about me and more concerned about you. From an authentic place, not the place of people pleasing, not being kind to you or being nice to you or standing next to you because it will reflect good on me. That's not the kind I'm talking about. The kind that when I go home and go to bed at night, I think, thank God for this day. Because I experienced it from a vulnerable, open heart. Anger is a gift from the divine. I am grateful for it. I hope if you have the time today and any inclination that you will think about joining us at 1 o'clock to really explore the wisdom of anger and how it shows up in your life, how it shows up in mine, because we learn from each other when we sit together in community. Thank you for letting me be here this morning. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.